Okay, so we are here right at the border between Camden Borough and the City of London. We are in Lincoln's Inn Fields today. And appropriate to its name, it used to be just a bunch of fields out here up until the 1630s, mainly used for grazing cattle. So it's not until, well, we've talked about Charles I before Charles II, not until about their time that this became an established area. But it had been a centre for law, one of the centres of law at least, since the 14th century. So you had the Inns of Court around here, for which it's mostly known. And the most famous one here being Lincoln's Inn, which has given the name to the square in the first place. Apparently the largest public square in London, according to one source, but I might have to verify that. There's one little funny feature. If you look at these little pineapples, they decorate the fence all around this park. And pineapples is something that you'll see in a few random places in London. They're used to subtly convey a sense of wealth. Because back in the day when you didn't have much access to pineapples in the first place, you couldn't grow them here in this country and you'd have to import them. They were very expensive. You could look at a price of up to £5,000 to buy a pineapple. We're talking in Victorian day and age in particular. So if you could afford to show off a pineapple at your banquet or at your dinner table or things like that, it would be a great way to signal to people just how wealthy and powerful you were. People would even go so far as renting pineapples to put amongst their decor just so they could give off the right vibes, I suppose we would say. It's a bit comparable to people now claiming to be rich and powerful, renting cars and making YouTube films with their Lamborghini and then quickly giving the Lamborghini away to someone else. Quick analogy there. But let's go inside the fields, take a little look at this lovely little park. So it's interesting here, we got a little bit of detail on the park that it would apparently a place for jousts as well. Lots of sporting events back in the day. Going as far back, this post-day claims at least, 1376. So you can imagine there would have been a few nightly tournaments here with the various clerks and sergeants at law working and operating in their glorified hostels, you could call them. Their 4 Inns of Court, not too far from here as well. So it's got some medieval history to it, this area. So we are here at an interesting little free museum to Sir John Soane. Now he was a famous architect who built a lot of the neoclassical buildings here in London. And you can see even his home, at least number 13, has got some of that neoclassical style for which he became so famous. His crowning achievement was definitely building the Bank of England, though much of the original building has been destroyed. But he was behind building it, and that was probably the greatest work that he's done. Now, he bought number 12, which is right next to the more impressive looking part, in 1792, and he moved in with his family in 1794. But they actually first finished the works in 1813, so they finished building his house exactly as he wanted, and he persuaded the tenant in number 13 to move out so he could knock down the walls and combine the two buildings, because he wanted room for his vast collection, and he had collected a lot of things over a very long and very rich life. He had, I believe, more than 7,000 different books and all kinds of other artifacts, busts, marble pieces, you name it. And he spent a lot of his life rearranging his massive collection almost on a daily basis. Now, one of the fun stories is that supposedly he detested his son so much that when it came to his inheritance and inheriting, this home that he had carved out for himself and his family, he decided to make it a free museum and give it to the nation rather than giving it to his son. And they say that's because he disliked him so much. I'm yet to find out exactly why he didn't like him, or what was the cause of that internal spat. But suffice to say, it's been good for the public ever since, because people can come here, as you can see, queue up, and get to come and see his vast collection for free. See here, a common feature many places in London actually, you'll find damage from shelling, either from the Blitz of World War II or from World War I, where Zeppelins and air balloons flew over London and dropped bombs on top of it. And this is an example of bomb damage from World War I from a Zeppelin, as it says here, on the 13th of October 1915. Struck the ground here and exploded, shattering the windows, the material damage. And these mementos are quite a few places around London where they've, instead of repaired it and restored it, they've left it behind to remember what happened. So you can find that in quite a few places. So here you got the crest, the coat of arms of Lincoln's Inn, and a nice little bit of stonework up there. So pretty subtle, but you'll see it around the area. Outside Lincoln's Inn here, the inn for which the area has been named Lincoln's Inn Fields. Here you can see the great hall, which is now serving multiple purposes. There's a restaurant in there, there's the famous dining hall. Each of the courts, Inns of Court, have got one big dining hall where barristers who have tied themselves to one of the court, you choose a court when you try and pass the bar, and when you become a barrister in this country, you have to choose one of those 4 Inns of Court. And part of the ceremony, the yearly ceremonies you engage in, is having a formal dinner, formal meal in the dining hall with your fellow barristers. So that's one of the purposes it's been used for. Think Hogwarts, Harry Potter. It was actually the films, and the author was inspired very much by the dining halls here in one of the various Inns of Court. And I suppose Lincoln's Inn is the most famous one and important one now, because it's the one that we've got the earliest records of life as a lawyer here in this area. So the earliest records we've got from any of the Inns of Court comes from here. It's the Black Books is what they're called, from 1422. And those are some of the earliest records recording meetings, minutes, various local administration taking place here. So a lot of it is quite dull, but you can find some interesting information there regardless. But we have reason to believe that Lincoln's Inn has been here before 1422, at least going back to the mid-1300s, so mid-14th century is where we estimate that you've had an active practice of law around here. And that was sort of a part of a natural evolution when matters of law and administration was gradually taken out of the hands of the church and of monks and clerics and given over to secular professionals, because common law became more and more complicated over time, especially after the Magna Carta, which we'll get back to in a future video, which laid the foundations for some of the first real common laws to be found in this country here. And that's when you started seeing a profession of people specializing in handling these laws and can trace their lineage back to here. And really it was foundational for the practice of law across the world. So this was one of the trend-setting areas for it. We've also talked previously about the Peasants' Revolt of 1381. One of the reasons we know there were lawyers in this area in those times was because the peasants in that revolt were specifically targeting institutions of law around here, and they did came here to raise hell in this area. So that's why we can assume that at least 40 years before the Black Books were recorded, you had a massive rebellion that took over London, where they specifically targeted legal documents, especially financial legal documents, having debts of people and things like that. And also, unfortunately for the lawyers, hunting down sergeants at law and making more or less a witch hunt on them is what they did back then, because the peasants were so fed up with being ruled from London. So that's some fascinating bits of history we've got. We're not too far from Gray's Inn either, which is just a stone's throw further down that direction. And in the previous video to this one, we've talked about the Inner Temple and Middle Temple. That's the two other Inns of Court, but they're a little bit farther away from here, so we won't get to them in time. But they're on the other side of Fleet Street, where the Templars used to be. We're just going to go down to the Royal Courts of Justice here very soon, talk a bit about that. We got a nice little statue here of Sir Thomas More, Lord High Chancellor of England, served under Henry VIII, and was, unfortunately for him, beheaded by the king because he refused to recognize his divorce in 1535, as well as his break from the Catholic Church, but did serve his king faithfully and loyally otherwise. Yes, so we are right at the back of the Royal Court of Justice. This is a senior civil court, so it mainly deals with civil cases. But it's actually a public building, so you can go inside and sometimes take a sneak peek at some of those court cases in action as they're taking place. And of course, it's right next to two of the Inns of Court of Barristers, because it is often the place where barristers will go to work. So many barristers, if they're brought for a court hearing here in London, might stay with their inn of choice while they work on a particular case in there. And they've done that historically for quite a while. But this building is of Victorian make. This was built in 1893, I believe it was, but I might need to double check that. It was opened by Queen Victoria in the 1890s. And interestingly enough, it's had a few high-profile cases recently. You've had, one case with our king, with King Charles III, when he was a crown prince. He settled his divorce with Princess Diana inside these halls here. And more recently, you've had Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, Part 1, the defamation case, took place in here as well. And finally, very recently, actually, just last month in May, you had Prince Harry leading a case here. He wanted to take a case to appeal against the English government for stripping him of his security detail after he lost his royal status, and he wants his security back. So he's been hounding them for that for years, and brought up a new case here again, but which was denied to him by the I forget what it's called. Is it Supreme Judge or something? I can't remember. I'll just say it was denied to him. So he didn't get his wish. He started it in April, and he failed to get it here just in May. Just a month ago, actually. But those are some examples of some of the high-profile cases that might take place. And once the barristers have finished working here, they might go down this street and peruse their selection of various law-themed restaurants and pubs. We'll go down into one of them here and finish down there, the Seven Stars pub, one of the oldest pubs in London. You can see a nice example here of some of the wigs that lawyers in this country still wear to this day. So you'd think that the fashion of wigs was passé 300 years ago, but English barristers have got something to tell you in that regard. That's a barrister wig. So that traditionally looks like that, and that is what they nickname spaniel wigs, usually reserved for judges. I think it's Queen's Counsel as well, and a few other councils. House of Lords. House of Lords, they would wear that as well. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, wigs started to become a fashion after the 1600s, when Charles II brought it back home as the fashion of the day. For those in court and in high positions would wear wigs. And then once it started dying out, the lawyers kept carrying it on and making it as part of their legal uniform. So to this day, you will see lawyers wearing wigs like these inside the Royal Courts of Justice and other courts.